From Sky News Australia at 12:29 p.m. today.
Hi, I'm Ray from loans.com.au. I know I'm not a real good voiceover, but I am a real good lending specialist. And if you want to stop overpaying your loan, let me help you switch lenders and save. If you're about to buy or refinance your family home, investment property or car, let us help you with an award-winning, real good loan while making every step of the process real easy. Visit loans.com.au or call 13 10 90. Is that what I really sound like? How embarrassing.
More than 100 child sex charges have been laid against 6 Queensland men by Task Force Argos detectives following extensive investigations in the lead-up to Child Protection Week. Among them is a 46-year-old Fortitude Valley man who's been charged with more than 20 child sex offences. He's accused of photographing children in public toilets and running a network inside a child exploitation website. A 44-year-old man from Beerwah has also been taken into custody accused of 62 offences. The arrests coincide with this year's Child Protection Week, which runs until September 9. Mining giant BHP is condemning Labor's industrial relations reforms, raising concerns businesses and consumers will shoulder the additional costs. It is part of a wider push from Australia's leading companies against the changes, saying it will increase the severity of the cost of living crisis. Workers across the mining, agriculture, recruiting and business sectors have united in the Find a Better Way campaign, demanding Labor finds an alternative to the proposed same job, same pay laws. The Senate has ordered the Defence Minister to provide more details about his $3 million taxpayer-funded travel bill. The Greens and Coalition teamed up to call on Richard Marles to provide a list of flights all politicians and officials have taken since 2021 on the RAAF's special fleet of aircraft. It would include the dates, destinations and cost breakdown of every flight. The Albanese government has previously said it wouldn't disclose information that could compromise security. A UK museum is handing back more than 170 cultural items to an Indigenous community in Northern Australia. The Anandiliakwa community from Groote Island will get back some traditional objects, including dolls made from shells, fishing spears and a map made from turtle shells. The artefacts were acquired by the Manchester Museum over 70 years ago. Their return is part of renewed efforts by British museums to decolonise objects or collections considered stolen. The Spanish Football Federation has fired its women's national team coach Jorge Vilda amid controversy surrounding the country's Football Federation president. Luis Rubiales was suspended by FIFA after kissing player Jenny Hermoso on the lips without her consent during the World Cup celebrations. Most of Jorge Vilda's coaching staff resigned after the incident and 81 players refused to play for Spain, but Mr Vilda was seen applauding Rubiales when he refused to resign as the president. He later said Mr Rubiales' behaviour was improper. The Football Federation didn't provide a reason for his dismissal. Chinese police have detained 2 people they suspect damaged part of the Great Wall of China. Police say a man in his 30s and a woman in her 50s used an excavator to cut through the UNESCO heritage site. They are accused of digging a gap into the wall to make way for an excavator, creating a shortcut for their construction work. The damage occurred in the section of the Great Wall built during the Ming Dynasty between the 14th and 17th century. And you can stay up to date by streaming Sky News on Flash. Visit skynews.com.au/flash.
Hi, I'm Ray from loans.com.au. I know I'm not a real good voiceover, but I am a real good lending specialist. And if you want to stop overpaying your loan, let me help you switch lenders and save. If you're about to buy or refinance your family home, investment property or car, let us help you with an award-winning, real good loan while making every step of the process real easy. Visit loans.com.au or call 13 10 90. Is that what I really sound like? How embarrassing.
From ABC News Briefing at 2:03 p.m. today.
ABC News. Jack James with the top stories. The Transport Workers Union has called for the entire Qantas board to be sacked and for former boss Alan Joyce to lose his bonuses. It comes after the High Court in Canberra unanimously dismissed an appeal by Qantas over its sacking of staff during the pandemic. The airline has reiterated an apology to workers and says it regrets the personal impact that it had at the time. The federal court will now consider a penalty and compensation for the workers. The devastation in Libya's east is becoming clearer, with local officials estimating 5,300 people have been killed in the city of Derna alone. Dams and bridges have collapsed under the pressure of heavy rainfall. The Red Cross estimates 10,000 people are missing in the floodwaters. And Russia and North Korea's leaders are reportedly set to hold talks at a space center in the coming day. Kim Jong-un has entered Russian territory for the first time in 4 years. South Korea's media is reporting that Kim will meet Vladimir Putin at a Space Center rocket launch site in Vostochny. The pair are expected to discuss sending more weapons to help Russia's war efforts in Ukraine. This is ABC News.
Resuming the Herald Sun news feed at 5 a.m. today.
Now you can reserve an Uber ride up to 90 days in advance, which is great if you're meeting up with friends for drinks. And why you're going to reserve an Uber ride for 3 hours and 30 minutes after the first round. That's around the time your friend Kat will convince everyone to go to karaoke, where she'll hog the mic and attempt to live out her fantasy of being a 90s R&B diva, one painful high note at a time. Reserve that Uber ride and spare your ears the damage. Reserve now, ride later with Uber Reserve.
This is the latest from your newsfeed. It's Wednesday, the 13th of September. Australia has warned there will be consequences for any country that aids Russia in its illegal war against Ukraine ahead of a meeting between Russia President Vladimir Putin and North Korea's Kim Jong-un. The deepening alliance of despots and dictators has been described as deeply troubling by the coalition, while a spokeswoman for Foreign Affairs Minister Penny Wong said on Tuesday Australia was closely monitoring the involvement of other countries in Russia's war on Ukraine. A woman claims one of Australia's most reviled gang rapists harassed her for months with messages of sexual fantasies and emails saying, "I want you all to myself," which she took to police, but they refused to protect her. 27-year-old Layla Elamuru says she was so frightened by the contact from Muhammad Skaff, a 40-year-old convicted sexual predator who spent 21 years in jail for his role in a series of sex attacks that shocked Sydney, that she went to the police begging for help. But in an extraordinary twist, she was arrested and charged with intimidating Skaff when she says she got desperate and took matters into her own hands. Victorian businesses will be slugged almost $18 billion extra over the next decade as a result of the government's changes to work cover premiums. It has prompted dire warnings from business groups that changes to the scheme will see the cost passed on to consumers, increased job losses and business closures. Changes to the scheme include an already announced 42% hike to premiums, with the average premium to rise from 1.2% to 1.8%. We'll be back after this.
The past few years have seen huge and permanent shifts to the way many of us work, all while AI and ML are becoming part of our regular corporate vernacular. Workday, a leading provider of enterprise cloud applications for HR and finance, delivers responsible AI and ML applications to businesses across Australia. Workday is the leading enterprise application provider for HR and finance that embeds AI and ML into the core of our technology platform, helping businesses achieve a more efficient way of working and a better experience for employees. Learn more about the HR and finance system for a changing world at workday.com.au.
Queensland's major hospitals hit breaking point and couldn't adequately service patient needs at least 156 times in a 3-month period, bombshell new data has revealed for the first time. The shocking state of the state's healthcare is laid bare in the government's revamped hospital performance website. A Courier Mail analysis of the data shows nearly all key facilities were escalated to Tier 3, which means hospital capacity is limited or exhausted more than 10 times between April and June for an average of 45.5 hours across the state. And in Adelaide, a 19-year-old father has faced court after police allegedly found him and a 13-year-old with firearms at the weekend. Diogo Camo faced the Port Adelaide Magistrate Court on Monday, charged with 1 count of aggravated possession of a firearm without a licence and another charge relating to ammunition. Police allege a stolen black Toyota 4-wheel drive was spotted at Henley Square about 10:15 p.m. on Saturday. We'll have another update to your newsfeed tomorrow.
This is a cheap.
From Fox FM Melbourne News at 11:09 a.m. today.
A listener production.
Another blow for Qantas's reputation. Good morning, I'm Celeste Fitzhugh. The airline has lost its High Court appeal over sacking workers during the pandemic to ward off strike action. Qantas has accepted the decision and acknowledged the hurt, but ACTU Secretary Sally McManus says it's a great day for workers.
When you decide to fight Qantas, you know that you've got to throw everything at it because they throw everything at it. It's a real David and Goliath struggle, but it just shows what workers can achieve when they pull together and they join together and they stand up for what's right.
The federal government's Centrepiece Housing Fund is expected to pass the Senate today. It will include building 30 new and affordable social homes in its first 5 years. Mark Butler will reveal his next step in cracking down on smoking and vaping today. It includes marking individual cigarettes with health warnings. The AEC is urging young voters to enrol ahead of the referendum. Next Monday is the deadline, and an NRL Grand Final tribute 30 years on from her iconic 1993 performance. Tina Turner will be honoured with a performance by the cast of Tina the Musical.
From ABC News Sport Briefing at 11:28 a.m. today.
ABC News.
I'm Daniela Intilli with the top sports stories. A disastrous batting collapse has condemned Australia to an emphatic 111-run loss to South Africa in the third one-day international at Potchefstroom. Aidan Markram's unbeaten century piloted the Proteas to an imposing 6 for 338. Australia was 1 for 140 in reply before losing 8 for 60 and ultimately being rolled for 227. It's the tourists' third biggest defeat in South Africa. Collingwood's Brayden Maynard has successfully avoided a season-ending suspension at the AFL Tribunal. He was facing a 3-week ban for rough conduct over his collision with Melbourne's Angus Brayshaw at the MCG. Maynard will now be able to play in next week's prelim final against either Port Adelaide or GWS. And Serena Williams has taken to social media following Simona Halep's 4-year tennis doping ban, posting 8 is a better number. The American won 23 Grand Slam singles titles but lost to Halep in the 2019 Wimbledon final. It denied Williams an 8th Wimbledon title and 24th Grand Slam crown before she retired at last year's US Open. Halep says she'll appeal her ban. This is ABC Sport.
From the Fox Sports Australia headlines feed at 11 a.m. today.
Departing Raiders playmaker Jack Whiten has been found guilty of biting Newcastle's Tyson Gamble at the NRL judiciary and suspended for 3 matches.
For more, search for foxsports.com.au.
From 7NEWS Sports Shorts at noon today.
South Africa have claimed their first win against Australia in the 5-game one-day international series. The Aussies fell short by 111 runs in Game 3 after Aidan Markram's 102 not out steered the Proteas to 6 for 338. David Warner fired back early, top scoring for Australia with 78.
Slip trouble! Oh, the fielding is a bit tiny. No, it's not! No, it's
Australia were all out for 227 runs. They lead the series 2-1 with the fourth match on Friday night.
From 7NEWS Bites at 2:40 p.m. today.
The Princess of Wales has made a surprise visit to a men's prison. She was searched by a prison guard and sniffed by a drug detection dog, like every other visitor, before being allowed to enter. Kate is patron of the addiction charity The Ford Trust and visited the prison to learn about its work supporting inmates. The Princess revealing during the tour she had suffered a hand injury while trampolining with her children at home.
From Listana Melbourne News at 7:10 a.m. today.
A listener production.
Good morning, I'm James Lake. A 16-year-old boy has been shot in his sleep this morning at Endeavour Hills. Police were called to reports of gunfire in a residential street at around 1:20. The youth was injured from his bed and is now recovering in a stable condition in hospital. Meantime, a 70-year-old man's fighting for life after being hit by a car last night at Balaclava. A 73-year-old woman who was driving the vehicle involved is cooperating with police. And a motorcyclist has lost his life after a collision with a car on the Maroondah Highway at Ringwood overnight. Victoria's roads have now claimed 37 more lives for 2023 than at the same time last year. Less than half of Australia's mobile users have jumped over to a device connected to the 5G network, according to a new poll of more than 53,000 people by Finder. 24% of people might still be sceptical, saying they don't want 5G phones at all, and 8% don't know what it is. Comes as our major telcos start to switch off their 3G networks, though, with Vodafone's the first to go by December 15. Amazon Australia has announced a recruiting call for 1,000 workers to help fill orders during the upcoming Christmas season. Jobs are available here in Melbourne involving tasks like picking, packing and shipping orders with no prior experience necessary. And checking Melbourne's fuel prices this morning, RACV has the average for unleaded up 1 cent from this time yesterday at $1.95 a litre, while the average for diesel in Melbourne sits at $2.16. A 4-hour AFL tribunal hearing last night has ended with Braden Maynard being freed to play in Collingwood's prelim final. The Pies defender's been cleared after that collision which knocked out Demons on-baller Angus Brayshaw last week. Carlton's also managed to get Jack Martin's striking suspension cut from 2 matches down to 1. The tribunal agreeing the force of the impact on Swan Nick Blakey was medium, not high. And Australia's unbeaten streak in South Africa has come to an end as it suffered a 111-run loss in the third one day this morning. David Warner's quick 50 gave the tourists hope in their chase of 339, but a mishap with his shoe causing a run out triggered a heavy collapse. Aidan Markham's century propelled the Proteas to 338, and he told Fox Cricket he's over the moon.
It's nice to contribute when the team does well and when we can win games. Obviously a crunch game for us to stay in the series, and for us as a team to deliver a performance like that is very much on the pleasing side and confidence building for us.
From ABC News Melbourne briefing at 7:23 a.m. today.
ABC News.
Hello, Kerry Worthington with the stories making news in Melbourne. Police are investigating after a fake letter impersonating a member of Victoria's Aboriginal body negotiating treaty was circulated in the state's northwest. In a statement, the First Peoples Assembly says the letter was falsely attributed to Assembly member Dylan Clark and contained underlying themes that, quote, were designed to create unfounded fear about the reacquisition of land. Victoria Police say they're making further inquiries about the letter. A Melbourne criminologist says an increased visible police presence in the CBD won't necessarily make everyone feel safer. Police are promising more officers patrolling in and around the city this month to help reassure the community Melbourne is safe, days after a deadly incident on Burke Street. The latest crime data focused on Melbourne CBD shows criminal incidents in the 3000 postcode are at their highest point since at least 2014. University of Melbourne criminologist Dr Dave McDonald says increased patrols can have the opposite effect for certain communities. A toddler remains in a stable condition in hospital after sustaining serious injuries from a dog attack in a Ballarat backyard. The Ballarat Council has confirmed it removed 2 dogs alleged to be involved in an incident in the suburb of Winter Valley late on Monday afternoon. The toddler was airlifted to the Royal Children's Hospital after the attack. ABC News.
From Triple M Melbourne News at 3:24 p.m. today.
A listener production.
Hi, it's Dan Flake here with the latest. Work building more social and affordable housing's not far away. The Senate's passed the Housing Australia Future Fund. However, it's requested amendments that the House of Reps need to tick off before the bill comes into power. Once it does, we'll see 30,000 new places built within its first 5 years. Calls today for Stuart Robert to be referred to the National Anti-Corruption Commission. It follows a parliamentary probe into the former Cabinet Minister's dealings with a Canberra lobbying firm and other companies chasing government contracts. Mr. Robert has denied any wrongdoing. Qantas is considering penalties for compensation for workers following today's High Court ruling. The carrier's appeal over its decision to outsource 1,700 ground handling staff during the pandemic's failed. Michael Cain from the Transport Workers Union is celebrating. He's also issued this message to the Flying Kangaroo's new CEO.
The bonuses have to go, the board has to go. Yes. And a message for the new CEO, Vanessa Hudson. You owe these workers and their families a deep and sincere apology.
Briefly, more than 5,000 are presumed dead following the Libya floods and another 10,000 are missing. It's thought a big contingent of Australians are stuck on a cruise ship which has run aground in Greenland, with help not expected till Friday. Apple's unveiled its iPhone 15, the first one with a universal USB-C charging port after it was forced to adopt them by Europe to reduce e-waste. And Taylor Swift has swept up a heap of gongs at the MTV VMAs, including the coveted Video of the Year.
From the Sky News Australia headlines feed at 11 a.m. today.
Western Sydney was plunged into chaos last night. Police responding to a shooting, a car crash and 2 car fires. Authorities were called to Campsie at 9 p.m, where they located a man with suspected gunshot wounds to his head and chest. He is in a serious condition at St George Hospital. Around the same time, emergency services arrived in Kingsgrove, where a Mercedes had crashed into a house before catching alight. 2 other cars, one in Baralla and the other in Birrong, also went up in flames. Firefighters were quick to put out all 3 infernos. Authorities will now investigate if the 4 accidents are linked.
Get the latest live news on Sky News Radio on the iHeartRadio app.
From 7NEWS briefing at 11:57 a.m. today.
Good morning, welcome to 7 News. Qantas has been dealt another blow. The High Court ruling the airline's sacking of 1,700 workers during the pandemic was illegal. Live to Isabel Mullen at the High Court in Canberra. Izzy, take us through the verdict.
Well, good morning, and 7 High Court judges were unanimous in their decision, finding that Qantas did act illegally in sacking 1,700 workers during the pandemic, outsourcing work to third-party providers like Swissport. Now, Qantas always maintained that this was a decision that they needed to make because of the uncertainty of the pandemic, but the union did argue that Qantas was worried about impending strike action. In 2021, the Federal Court ruled Qantas contravened the Fair Work Act. It was Qantas's last chance to appeal the decision. They did lose that appeal. There was a big reaction from both the workers and the union in court. There was some hugs, a big cheer. We spoke to workers a short time ago.
We were just ordinary ladies and gentlemen going to work. We were no one special. But today, we feel that we're special.
Today, 1,700 Qantas families have had a massive victory in the highest court in the land.
Qantas has released a statement this morning saying, "We deeply regret the personal impact the outsourcing decision has had on all those affected, and we sincerely apologise for that." The union would now like workers to be compensated and for Qantas to face a hefty fine. But this case isn't over yet. It goes back to the federal court now for a judge to decide how much Qantas workers, the former Qantas workers, can be compensated. Ange.
OK, Isabel Mullen at the High Court. Thank you. Sydney police are investigating whether an overnight shooting, a car crash and the torching of 3 other vehicles are linked to the city's escalating gang violence. Liam Tapper reports.
Well, police are hunting for the shooter or shooters they believe to be responsible for what is being treated as the latest gangland attack here in Sydney. It was just after 9 o'clock that authorities were called to the corner of Bexley Road and Canterbury Road in Campsie after reports of gunfire. When they arrived, they found a 27-year-old man in the garage of this unit complex with multiple gunshot wounds to his body, one to his chest and also to his head.
We have one male with a gunshot wound to the chest. We do have ambulance in attendance as well as police.
From here, he was taken to St George Hospital where he remains in a serious condition. The other person in the car was unharmed. Now, throughout the night, there were 3 cars that were found burnt out around Sydney in Birrong, Burralla and also in Kingsgrove. Now, it's in Kingsgrove, that silver Mercedes, which crashed into a home before it burst into flames, that police will focus their attention on. They do believe that this was one of the vehicles that was used in last night's attack. Neighbours say that they were terrified with what they heard.
When we came out, it's already fire in front of us, blowing up and then shaking all the house.
Big explosion. It was really loud.
There have been 25 gangland shootings to take place on the streets of Sydney over the past 3 years. While police are investigating into whether this is linked to those recent shootings, they do hope that this won't lead to more and more acts of retribution here in Sydney.
A 17-year-old boy is in hospital this morning after being shot while sleeping at Endeavour Hills in Melbourne. Tegan Dolly has that story.
It was just before 1:30 this morning when a barrage of gunshots were fired into a home here in Janmara Court in Endeavour Hills. Police believe that they took aim either on the road or while standing on the footpath. Inside, a 17-year-old boy was asleep in the top floor bedroom and he was shot at least once in the shoulder. Now, he was rushed off to hospital in a stable condition.
We heard gunshots. Yeah.
How loud was it?
That was quite loud, yeah.
Probably about 10 to 15 roughly. So yeah, it was like raining bullets, so it was full on.
There were other family members who were home at the time. Luckily, they were not injured, but the Armed Crime Squad is down here on the scene. They have cordoned off the court as they begin their investigation to determine why this person may have been targeted.
From 7NEWS Sports Bite at 2:46 p.m. today.
With your 7 News Sports Bite, I'm Nick Markham. The AFL has decided not to appeal against the tribunal's decision to clear Braden Maynard of rough conduct for the collision with Angus Brayshaw that concussed the Demons star. Collingwood football manager Graham Wright explains why the Pies brought in a biomechanist to argue Maynard's case.
That was really to do with the time that someone has to make a decision when they're mid-air, and whether you can consciously make that decision. So that was basically what that evidence come through with the expert we had.
Maynard is now free to play in Collingwood's preliminary final next weekend. In the NRL, Jack Whiten will miss South Sydney's historic 2024 season opener in Las Vegas after being hit with a 3-match biting ban at the judiciary. A character reference from Kangaroos coach Mal Meninga couldn't save Whiten from being found guilty of biting Newcastle's Tyson Gamble. And in tennis, former world number 1 Simona Halep has been banned until 2026 for doping. An independent tribunal found the 31-year-old Romanian guilty of 2 breaches of the tennis anti-doping program, stemming from a positive test at last year's US Open. And that's your 7 News Sports Bite for Wednesday, September 13. I'm Nick Markham.
From CommSec Market Update at 7:50 a.m. today.
If you want the latest share market and
From 7NEWS Showbiz Shorts at 2:03 p.m. today.
Well, the MTV Video Music Awards are unfolding right now in New Jersey.
Peter Ford, a couple of Aussies have won.
we have an Aussie win. So this is a group called Stray Kids. Now, they have won for the best K-pop band. Now, 2 of the members of that group originally hail from Sydney. So we can claim this is an Aussie win, absolutely, can't we? So good luck to both of them. There they are, boys getting up to collect their award. The other interesting thing, which is playing out, we won't have an answer for it before we go off air, is that this battle between Taylor Swift and Beyonce for the most MTV VMA awards, they both now, because of Taylor's wins tonight, both now sit at 16. So it's very likely that she'll win one more and will have overtaken Beyonce as the biggest winner of all time.
That is pretty incredible. And big news as well for the Tina Turner musical, Pete.
This is great news. Just breaking now, the Tina Turner musical will be the headline act at the NRL Grand Final on October 1. So this is great exposure for local talent, great exposure for a theatrical production which is going on the road. And of course, the synergy here, of course, with Tina Turner and Simply the Best, and what you get is what you see, or what you see is what you get, either one. But so it's a great history there. So I think that's a lovely thing to do.
Yeah, it's a great fit.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Pete. We'll see you tomorrow.
We'll be back after this.
From IGN at 8 p.m. yesterday.
This is IGN.
We all know that feeling. When you're looking for a new show, one about an epic odyssey into
Victory. Welcome to your IGN Daily News. First, Microsoft is partnering with Barclays to create an Xbox MasterCard, the company announced. This card has no annual fee and will be available exclusively to Xbox insiders in the continental United States, Alaska, and Hawaii starting on September 21st. According to Xbox Wire, cardholders can earn card points for every $1 that they spend on purchases. In particular, buying eligible products on the Microsoft Store will net cardholders 5 times the amount of points, while eligible streaming services like Netflix and Disney Plus will dish out 3 times the points. The card will be available and rolled out to Xbox insiders in waves starting September 21st this year. In 2024, the card will be available to all Xbox players in the United States. Up next,
from the morning show Bites at 2 p.m. today. From the Quickie at 6:05 a.m. From the Herald Sun headlines feed at 6:08 a.m. today.
Victorian businesses will be slugged almost $18 billion extra over the next decade as a result of the government's changes to work cover premiums. It has prompted dire warnings from business groups that changes to the scheme will see the costs passed on to consumers, increased job losses and business closures. Changes to the scheme include an already announced 42% hike to premiums, with the average premium to rise from 1.2% to 1.8%.
For the latest, search for Herald Sun newsfeed wherever you get your podcasts.
From